Hi, I'm David and I'm trying to get an automotive YouTube channel off the ground, and I decided the best way to start my YouTube channel was with a PC build. Okay, fine, so a PC build and plans for a car-based YouTube channel don't necessarily seem like likely bedfellows, but there is a small amount of method to my madness. Firstly, whilst I'm a big car fan, I'm also a bit of a computer nerd, and frankly my current system was just not up to the rigours of any serious video editing. It's an old Core i5 small form factor build that two friends put together for me a couple of years ago, and whilst it's a good all-round machine, it now struggles with Photoshop and video editing. Whilst I also do have a fairly decent Dell laptop, it does tend to try and melt its way through my desk like a runaway nuclear reactor under heavy workloads. I've also struggled with PC gaming for a while, and I really needed a machine with a bit more horsepower to enjoy some of the latest games like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, so it seemed like a logical time to press ahead with a new system. Secondly, I realised I could use this as a little bit of a test project to cut my teeth on video editing software. For editing, I'm using DaVinci Resolve, which I chose due to its industry reputation, excellent online tutorials, and most importantly of all, it's free. And thirdly, by the time I'm done with all this, I'll have a much better idea how to shoot a video, all from the comfort of my own office rather than worrying about it on a moving vehicle. This should hopefully feed into my work when I actually start working with, well, cars. Whilst I do work in tech, it's actually been some years since I scratch built a PC. So much so that I found the situation with hardware a little bewildering to get caught up with. As a result, I've spent several months watching reviews, reading up on hardware, and trying to get a general feel for where things are in the PC space these days. Anyway, I think that's enough rambling on and self-justification, so let me walk you through the parts I've chosen. My goal was to build a complete system for around £1,500, which would serve both as a decent gaming rig, productivity machine, and hopefully build something with a bit of fun and style. We'll start off with the case. I've gone for the NZXT H500, not to be confused with 20 other cases that seem to bear the H500 name these days. I'm a fan of the minimalist design, simple mounting mechanism for the tempered glass side panel, and it's available in white, which suits my planned build aesthetic nicely. For the processor, given AMD's resurgence with Ryzen in recent years, I opted to go with the Ryzen 2700X. It's an 8-core 16-thread CPU, offers an excellent price to performance ratio, comes with a decent stock cooler, and should be more than up to the relatively moderate workloads that I'll be chucking its way. For my motherboard, I chose Asus's Republic of Gamers Strix B450F Gaming. And yes, that is a mouthful. It comes in quite a bit cheaper than the higher end X470 equivalents, while still offering some decent overclocking potential and all the features that I was going to need. Reading that Ryzen likes faster memory, I opted for some Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro RAM running at 3000MHz. Yes, I know RGB RAM is a bit pointless, but when you consider most of my PC building experience involved uninspiring beige cases, this time I knew I wanted a little bit more visual flair. Power will be taken care of by a Corsair RM750X fully modular power supply. It's 80 plus gold rated, and the appeal of a fully modular design is that hopefully it should make the installation easier and do away with any unnecessary cables. Storage has introduced something totally new to me as I opted for an M.2 NVMe drive, in this case a Samsung 970 EVO Plus. This should cover my immediate storage requirements nicely. Plus, NVMe drives are rated to be significantly faster than their Serial ATA counterparts. Now, graphics was a tough one. Last year I treated myself to this Samsung CF791 34-inch ultra-wide. At the time it was a daft purchase as my PC really wasn't strong enough to drive it. The trouble is that I really do want to game at its native 3440 by 1440 resolution, which isn't far off 4K in terms of the horsepower needed to drive it. This had me worrying that something like an RTX 2060 just wasn't going to cut it, and there was no way I could afford to stretch to something like a 2080 Ti for this build. I did also consider some used Pascal cards as well as AMD's Vega lineup. The cost of a new graphics card was really a little hard to swallow. In the end, after much deliberation of various cards, I opted for an EVGA RTX 2070 XC Gaming. I had originally planned to buy the black edition of the card, but it wasn't in stock at the time of the order. Thankfully, I managed to bag the XC gaming version for just an extra £10 over the black. Not bad when you consider you get a smart backplate, some extra lighting and, allegedly, some extra performance. Finally, we have the CPU cooler. Now, I mentioned earlier AMD's Ryzen 2700X comes with a pretty decent stock unit. However, for this build I fancied an all-in-one water cooler. Keeping with the NZXT theme, to match the case I opted for a Kraken X62 cooler. It features a 280mm radiator with twin 140mm fans, an RGB lighting block, and despite a few reservations I'd read about NZXT's CAM software, seemed to get generally favourable reviews and good rated thermals. A 280mm AIO is the largest unit that I could squeeze into the H500 case. I also bought some thermal paste in case the stock application wasn't any good, a pair of mini side cutting pliers, a ton of cable ties and a retail version of Windows 10, as my existing PC is going to be repurposed as a media box in the living room at a later date. And yes, okay, I did sneak in an extra RGB lighting strip because why not? So with that all together, I'm afraid the idiot in front of the camera wants to speak again before everything starts getting built. So with that in mind, and before I embark on the build, I want to address a few obvious comments first. Yes, my video does look like it's been made by a YouTuber from 10 years ago, and frankly that's because all of my camera equipment is, well, 10 years old. Yes, I have limited experience making this sort of video, so you're going to look forward to visual continuity issues, cat cameos, annoying cuts, lighting issues, focusing issues, sound issues, all the things you would expect to see basically from somebody who doesn't have the first clue what they're doing. And finally, in terms of the build itself, it's not intended to be a end-to-end how-to guide. There are plenty of people out there that have got way more experience doing this sort of build than I have, and what I will do as part and parcel of this is I'll include a couple of links to other YouTubers that I found very useful in terms of getting the preparation right for my build. So with that all in mind, I'm going to go and get the kettle on, have a cup of tea, and then we'll get into the build. And so here we are. It's pretty much the culmination of the build for today. I haven't switched it on yet. I'm a bit nervous as to whether or not it's going to work. I have plugged in mains power and there hasn't been an enormous bang yet, but I don't know. So the key thing now is, will it post? And if it doesn't, then I'll probably be wishing that I'd bought one rather than built one. So let's see what happens. Well, we've got some RGB, so that means something's been connected correctly. Hooray! There we go. Oh, it works! It worked! Oh, thank God for that! Yes, it works, but before I start getting into any cable management, I think there's one or two things I need to change. Firstly, just look at those power supply cables going to the graphics card. I couldn't bear to leave it that way, so I've swapped them out for some white Corsair braided ones, and I think you'll agree that looks a hell of a lot better. The next issue I had was the case fans. Whilst neither of them were particularly noisy, I found the unit in the top was causing a lot of vibration all the way through the case. In the end I decided to swap them out for a pair of Noctua Chromax fans, 120mm in the rear and 140 in the top. This has got the benefit of increased airflow, and they definitely seem to run quieter still than the stock units. So with that all said and the replacement fans fitted, I finally went about the cable management, and I think hopefully you'll agree it's quite a neat job. The H500's got loads of tie down points and it was easy to get the cables routed how I wanted them. It's certainly a hell of a lot tidier than some of the professionally built systems I occasionally have to deal with at work. So, I guess all there's left to do now is the standard PC build B-roll footage. Let's go! Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Next time I'll be doing some benchmarking on the new system and figuring out what sort of performance I'm getting. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye! trying to do a video. Go away! Go away! I'm never gonna get this done.